Hello. So here is how existence works. Everything within existence is contained within the infinite Higgs field. Okay? The Higgs field would be considered -1. The photon would be considered +1. The gluon is neutral. It's 0. Okay? So let me explain to you really quick what Z bosons are. Okay? Z bosons are basically the field. Okay, think about the sun. Okay? So the horizon of the sun. Okay? So Z bosons are basically where Higgs bosons are getting to the point that they're infinitely small, and photons are to the point where they're infinitely large and they're meeting. Okay? That is a Z boson. That is what makes the horizon. Okay? So let me explain this strain to you real quick. Okay? So, as I said before, contained within the infinite Higgs field, which is -1, are infinite gluons and photons. The photons are +1. The gluons are basically the accumulation of infinite photons and Higgs bosons combined to make 0. Okay? So you have gluons and photons within the Higgs field, okay? And then you have, that is the fundamental building block of existence, okay? And then you have, on the horizon of where those are basically intertwining, you have the Z boson, okay? All these different octaves of the hydrogen atom are Z bosons, okay? So, after the Higgs and the gluon and photon all begin to intertwine, you have the electron neutrino, which, okay, photons, think about the sun, okay? The sun is shooting out photons at us. And what are those? Well, those are considered W positive bosons, okay? Now, the space that surrounds us, the Higgs, is basically pulling all of that in, okay? That is considered W negative bosons, okay? Basically, the W positive bosons are light and heat, and the W negative bosons are space, and not necessarily dark, but space and cold, okay? You can think of it as dark because whenever you look out in space, it appears dark, but it's not really dark, it's just clear. It goes so far out that it appears black, okay? So you have the electron neutrino, which is shooting out W negative bosons contained within the Z boson, okay? Then you have electron neutrino, which is W positive bosons, okay? Shooting out light and heat, okay? Those are both basically intertwining, okay? If you want to think about it in particle, if you want to think about it particle-wise, just think about particles spinning, kind of like making a rope going in this direction, except in existence and reality, they're not going in one direction. They're going in infinite directions, okay? So basically, the photons are shooting out and the Higgs field is pulling in, okay? And together, what do they make? They make gluons. And what are gluons? Well, gluons are infinite Higgs bosons and infinite photons, okay? So then you have the muon neutrino, the negative muon neutrino, or the muon antineutrino, which is shooting out W negative, muon neutrino, W positive, electron, W negative, positron, W positive, up quark, anti-up quark, W negative, up quark, W positive, anti-down quark, W negative, down quark, W positive, tau antineutrino, which is W negative, tau neutrino, which is W positive, anti-strange, W negative, strange, W positive, anti-muon, W negative, muon, W positive, anti-charm, W negative, charm, W positive, anti-tau, W negative, tau, W positive, anti-bottom, W negative, bottom, W positive, anti-top, W negative, top, W positive, okay? And that is where the hydrogen atom ends. And what begins again? What is all this that surrounds it? The Higgs field, okay? But within this is infinite gluons, photons, and Higgs bosons, as well as out here, okay? And then it begins again, infinitely, okay? So think about the sun, okay? The sun is basically infinitely expanding. The Higgs field, which is all the space that surrounds us, that is within us, is basically infinitely contracting, okay? So, let me explain relativity really quickly. Relativity is both finite and infinite, okay? So, you have two different theories that they've had difficulty until now putting together, okay? So you have relativity, Einstein's theory, which is E equals mc squared. Then you have Planck's theory, which is quantum theory, which is E equals hf, which is Planck's constant times frequency, okay? So the Z boson, as I said, is basically the point where the Z bosons, where the Higgs bosons get infinitely small, okay? Think about it like this. These are Higgs bosons. They're bigger, they're smaller. They're getting infinitely smaller, okay, to that point, okay? Now think of this as a photon, okay? So the photon is basically shooting out magnetic waves, okay? Every which direction, infinitely, okay? So E equals mc squared is basically things getting larger, okay? So this, going this direction, if you're accounting for the Higgs bosons, they're getting infinitely larger, okay? And if you're going to the point of singularity, this is where the Higgs bosons start to get infinitely larger again, okay? So the Z boson, the horizon, is where basically quantum theory and relativity meet, okay? So the photons, up until the point of the horizon, okay, are getting infinitely larger, okay? Okay? So they're getting infinitely larger. And this is basically where they meet up. Okay? All quantum theory is Planck's constant times frequency. Planck's constant is just an arbitrary number that he kind of pulled out of nowhere, okay? Because in reality, existence is infinite, okay? It's getting infinitely smaller and infinitely larger, okay? Yeah, so, okay. So let's think about relativity to the sun, okay? So this is you. And this is the sun, okay? The closer that you get to the sun, the larger the photons are relative to you, and the smaller the Higgs bosons are relative to you. And the farther you get away from the sun, the smaller the photons are relative to you, and the larger the Higgs bosons are relative to you. Okay? And that happens with everything. Okay? That's how everything within existence is infinitely expanding and infinitely contracting. Okay? Because whenever I push my arm closer to you, okay, what's happening? The photons shooting off of me are getting larger relative to you. And the Higgs bosons are getting smaller relative to you. I pull my hand back, the exact opposite occurs, okay? It's that simple, okay? So, let me show you how it all works, okay? So you have the photon surrounded by the Higgs boson, or the Higgs bosons, okay? We'll just make this like it's the sun surrounded by space, okay? So let me explain it to you real quick, okay? So I'm going to jump into biology really quickly, just so that you can grasp it, okay? So there are different fields of time, okay? Everything is in its own field of time relatively, okay? This chair is in a different field of time than my field of time. A hummingbird is in a different field of time than my field of time, okay? It's all relative, okay? So even the systems that are within you, you know, your integumentary, your circulatory, nervous, reproductive, all your different systems within you are on different fields of time, okay? The fields of time are infinite as well, okay? So, for instance, my heart. My circulatory system is in a different field of time than my respiratory system, okay? So, the way that the heart works is for a long time they said that there's the sinoatrial node and the atrioventricular node that basically create a pathway through the heart that make it beat in the atrium and the ventricle and the ventricles, okay? So boom, 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 boom. That's theoretical. That's not true. That's not the way that it works, okay? The way that it works is whenever you breathe in oxygen, oxygen is negatively charged, okay? The carbon dioxide that's within you is positively charged, okay? So that negatively charged oxygen goes into your lungs, goes into your alveoli, okay? Think about it as a bunch of little spheres, okay? Whenever they're out in the air, they're fairly larger. They go within you, they go into the alveoli, they get into the capillaries, they get smaller and smaller and smaller, okay? Then, the sides of your heart. One side of your heart has positively charged oxygen, oxygenated blood. One side has negatively charged carbon dioxide filled blood, okay? So, whenever those two major different fields of energy, negatively charged and positively charged meet, it causes your heart to pump. Boom, 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 boom. Okay? So that's how that works. Now let me explain to you how your digestive system works. Okay? So you eat matter. Okay? Matter is it's infinitely charged with positive and negative particles, okay? That's why you need it to survive, okay? Because you're basically a big field of energy, and for you to be able to perpetuate yourself, you need a lot of energy, okay? You need a lot of string, okay? Which is what Higgs bosons, gluons, and photons, okay? So, say I eat a tomato. Tomato goes into me, goes into my digestive system, it gets broken down, broken down, broken down, further and further and further and further, until it gets to the fundamental aspect of gluons and photons. And what happens to those? They break down. And what happens? They turn in to dark energy. Okay? So the dark energy is what? Dark energy is basically gluons, photons, and Higgs bosons. Okay? So they break down basically into the fundamental Higgs bosons. Okay? And they go down and down and down and down and down until they get to the point where they are infinitely small in the what? The protons, okay? What happens at the horizon of the protons? Well, that's where quantum theory and relativity meet, okay? Then the Higgs bosons start to expand again, okay? And that's what's feeding all the protons that are within you, is the dark energy that they're broken down to, okay? Do you understand that? So, this is where it kind of starts to get trippy, okay? So, let's look at the atoms within your body, okay? This is an atom within your body. Okay, it's surrounded by dark energy, okay? And all that's within this atom is what? Protons and neutrons, okay? So the protons and neutrons are in the middle of the atom, right? So the thing about it is, okay, so I don't want to get ahead of myself, okay? So the dark energy feeds in to the protons and neutrons, okay? Basically feeding the protons, okay? Because they feed the protons, and then the protons shoot out energy to the neutrons, okay? And the neutrons get energy from that, okay? So what are protons, neutrons, and electrons? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, okay? Electrons are space. Basically, Higgs bosons, and infinite Higgs bosons, okay? What are protons? Well, protons are stars. What are neutrons? Neutrons are planets, moons, and asteroids, okay? Now let's delve in even deeper, okay? So what are protons, neutrons, and electrons? Like I said before, electrons are basically Higgs bosons and infinite Higgs bosons. Gluons are planets, moons, and asteroids. And protons are photons. Do you understand that? It's all basically just a never-ending stairway, okay? Because you have gluons, photons, Higgs bosons. Up from that, you have the next level. 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 And it just keeps going and going and going. It's infinite, okay? So what is dark energy? Dark energy is basically just an accumulation of gluons, photons, and Higgs bosons, okay? But it's basically Higgs bosons getting infinitely larger and photons getting infinitely smaller, okay? What is dark matter? Well, dark matter is the place in which they're in equilibrium, where both Higgs bosons and photons are basically, the photons are infinitely expanding while the Higgs bosons are infinitely contracting, keeping them in equilibrium, okay? So the trippiest thing about this is, this planet that we're on right now is a gluon. And the sun is a photon. And the space that surrounds us is a Higgs boson. Do you understand that? You are both the infinitely small particle within you, as well as the infinitely large particle. So is the universe static? Yes, it's static here. You know, if you ever look at Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, you'll see if you get anything and you spin it around every which direction from its point of origin, it's going to make a perfect sphere, which is what we are. We're both the fundamental particle and the universal particle. Do you understand that? I am a universe. You are a universe. And we are the multiverse. Okay? So, let's get into relativity and the double slit experiment. Okay, so with the double slit experiment, they basically set it up to watch it. You might have to look into it to know what I'm talking about. And whenever they watched it, naturally, it was in wave formation. Okay, all the particles that accumulated on the backboard, on the screen, were in wave formation. But whenever they went to measure it, it was in particle formation. And that threw them for a loop. And they wondered why that was. Well, I'll tell you why that was right now. Because naturally, everything is infinite. Relatively, things become finite whenever you begin to measure them. And why is that? Because you are the universe. So whenever you measure light in a vacuum tube, it's 300 million meters per second or something like that. Okay, approximately. Okay? But that's only whenever it applies to relativity. Okay? Naturally, it's infinite. Okay? It's all infinite. Because why? Because let's look at the electromagnetic spectrum, what I like to call the information spectrum. Okay? So the information spectrum, you have basically, let me think about this. It's been a little bit. Okay, so let me just draw this real quick. So you have basically waves that are very large in the beginning and very small at the end. Okay, the beginning of the spectrum is the waves of basically the Higgs boson. Okay, which, if you account for that, it's like this. Okay, a big sphere. And then it goes into radio waves, and then microwave, and then infrared, light, ultraviolet, X-ray, gamma. And then what's it turn into again at the very end? The Higgs boson, which is at the bottom of that gratis. Okay, gratises are steps, the steps of space. Okay, we don't live in finite gratises, we live in infinite gratises. But relatively, you're basically born, you expand, and then you contract, and you die. Okay, well, it's more like born, life, death. Born, life, death. Okay, that's how it is. Okay, but the gratises, I mean, you can compare them to dimensions. So they've wondered for a long time, how many dimensions do we live in? Do we live in 3 dimensions? How many dimensions? We live in infinite dimensions. Okay, because everything is infinitely expanding and contracting. Okay. So whenever you look at the sun, or you look at the stars or the galaxies that are out there, all the galaxies is atoms within you. And the sun is a photon within you. Okay? And the gratises go like this. You're born, you live, you die. You're born, you live, you die. Those are the gravises of space, okay? So whenever you connect them, what does that look like to you? Looks to me like a big cube, right? Well, that's all the gravises are. They're basically the steps of space. Getting infinitely smaller, infinitely larger, infinitely smaller, infinitely larger, infinitely smaller, infinitely larger. Okay? Infinitely. All right? So let's get into wave-particle duality. Okay? So, double slit experiment, that's where they came up with the idea for wave-particle duality. Okay? So, you have a wave. Okay? You can think of the wave as the photon. You can think of a wave as the photon and the gluon. And what's within it, as well as outside of it, the Higgs boson and the Higgs field, which are what? Infinite Higgs bosons. Okay? So if you want to that's a particle way to look at it. So you have the photon and the gluon. Okay? All contained within the Higgs field. Okay? That's the wave. I mean, that's the particle formation. Okay? But whenever you grab that rope and you spin it towards you and you look in that rope that is the Higgs field, what do you see? You see infinite Higgs bosons, gluons, and photons. Infinitely expanding and infinitely contracting. All right? Basically just Higgs bosons getting infinitely smaller, infinitely larger, gluons getting infinitely smaller, infinitely larger, photons getting infinitely smaller, infinitely larger, infinitely. Okay? It's all infinite. It's beautiful. So like I was saying before, you have you have the gluon. You have the gluon, which is equal to 0. You have the photon, which is equal to positive 1. And you have the Higgs boson, which is equal to negative 1. Okay? So, why do you get in good and bad moods? Why does that occur? Well, it's just a flow of positive and negative energy. Okay? So, whenever Christ said, the meek shall inherit the earth, he wasn't talking about the weak will inherit the earth. He was talking about the submissive will inherit the earth. Those who are willing to just ride the wave and be submissive to it all. Because all of it is God. I am God, you are God, this wall is God, everything is God. And we're all infinite, okay? But there has to be birth, life, and death. And why is that? Because that keeps things perpetually moving, perpetually changing. okay? It's a necessity, okay? Because things are infinitely expanding and infinitely contracting every which direction, okay? Right now, the photons that are shooting off of my Z bosons moving towards you are infinitely contracting, okay? Now, whenever I move closer to you, relatively, they're expanding. Whenever I move away from you, relatively, they're contracting. So whenever I move closer to you, what's happening? Well, relative to you, the photons are getting closer to you. So what does happen in that case? Well, the photons are getting larger relative to you, and the Higgs bosons are getting smaller relative to you. Okay? But whenever I move away, the exact opposite occurs. Okay? But one of the main takeaways from this is you are both the infinitely small fundamental particle as well as the infinitely large fundamental particle. And someday you will die. But you know what? I can guarantee you'll be taken care of. Because, as Christ said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. This, all that we have, all that is here, all of this infinity is heaven or hell. It's what you make of it. If you let it be hell, it'll be hell. If you let it be heaven, it'll be heaven. Because there is the immanent God, which is all that is matter, and there's the transcendent God, which is what is not matter. Okay? It's a beautiful thing. It's a very beautiful thing. It's taken me about a year to put all this together, but it's finally come together now, and it's a very, very beautiful thing. If you just forgive and forget and just be kind to others, you can be an infinite conduit of love that we all have the capability of being. You know? Salvation, enlightenment, moksha, you know, it's like a candle with a burning wick. Sometimes some wind's gonna come along and it's gonna either almost blow it out or it's gonna totally blow it out. And then it's gonna take you work to either get it started again, or the wind will finish blowing and it'll start burning again. Okay? But just be kind to others, be good to one another, and it'll be a beautiful world, you know? But now we have to work. Now that we figured this stuff out, you know, scientists are going to have to verify it and everything like that. A lot of them, I'm not going to lie, they're not going to want to, because there's a lot of money and stuff like that that goes into research and things like that, measuring stuff in the universe and everything like that. And if they basically say, well, now we have the answer to that, they're not going to get money for those things. But I'm asking those of them that are thinking like that in the way of greed, please don't do that. Please start to put money so that we into things that make it so that we can have a sustainable future. Okay? Because I do see in the future us developing technology where we can leave this planet and we can travel within our galaxy. I don't know if it's possible for us to leave the galaxy or not. That's still in question. But with entanglement, that's one thing I didn't explain is entanglement. Okay, what is entanglement? Okay, entanglement is what assures that you can't be in more than one place within the universe. Okay, so for instance, cosmic perspective. The cosmic perspective of an atom within my fingertip is different from the cosmic perspective of an atom within my shoulder. Okay, this atom can't be where this atom is at the same time. Okay, it's an impossibility. Okay, but teleportation is possible, and I know that with the use of entanglement because you are everywhere. So we can build a transporter to transport people from Earth to Mars or something like that, and it's instantaneously. I'll be the first one to get into it and try it out because I have faith that those that those photons, gluons, and Higgs bosons that spontaneously combine on the other side of that transporter are going to be me. And why is that? Because I am everywhere. You are everywhere. Okay? You are the God of your own existence. Okay? That doesn't mean you can't still say a prayer every once in a while and say, Lord, please give me strength or something like that, because everything is God. Okay? Everything is God, including you. Okay? So it's still okay to ask for help. I'm trying to think about if there's anything else I wanted to talk about. I explained my interpretation of the Ten Commandments in my last video. You know, science is nature, you know, and for people to try to denigrate it is not a good thing. You know, if we come up with something new in science and people are opposed to it, that's because they're basically trying to force their will on other people. It's compliance, you know, it's just control, you know, and it's just, that's not what we're meant to do, is control other energy fields, okay? Because relative to you, you are an energy field, I am an energy field. We're moving through energy fields, interacting with other energy fields, and it just, for you to try to impose your will on another energy field that they don't want, that's not a good thing. You know, we need to be free. Everyone in the world needs to be free and to be able to do what they want. Okay? I mean, there's a lot to that needs to be explained, which if people need direction in the future, I could possibly give that to them. But I only want them to take my advice if they want to take my advice. So I hope this video was enlightening for you. The string is a beautiful thing, you know. It's basically just particles. Okay, so that's another thing about it. Think about, okay, particle-wise, okay. Think about that's one thing I didn't explain, is why galaxies look the way they do whenever we look out their atom, okay? They appear to be flat, but they're not really flat. The reason they appear to be flat is because we can only see in our own gratis, within our own field of time, okay? If we really were to look at them, they would look like a perfect sphere, okay? Because what are the Earth, what are the planets, asteroids, moons, and stars, as well as the Higgs bosons all doing? Well, they're basically pulling and pushing on each other, every which direction, infinite directions, okay? And what is, if you look at it in three-dimensional form, what is that? Well, it's a wave, okay? So that's all that we are. That's all the planets, moons, asteroids, stars, all that stuff orbiting one another is. It's just a wave, okay? Because, but whenever you grab that wave and you twist it and you look into it, what is it? Well, think about the Earth being a gluon, okay? You look at the Earth from the outside, you just see a big sphere. You just see a big particle. But whenever you start to look into it, what do you see? Infinite waves. Waves everywhere. And infinite particles. Infinitely expanding and infinitely contracting in every which direction. And all we can see out there, I mean, this is all speculative on my behalf, but whenever we look out there and we see all those galaxies, what are we looking at? Hydrogen atoms. That's all we're seeing is hydrogen atoms whenever we look out there. That's it. Because what are hydrogen atoms? They're the building blocks. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would appreciate it if you could help my family and I by contributing to my GoFundMe page, Magnitis Toys, MAGNITIS Toys, or it scares me a little bit because I've been taking care of my mom lately, and I invented a toy a while back, and I have everything ready to run the business, but it's just I'm taking care of my mom, so I'm kind of afraid to start selling the toys. But let me show you this real quick. So, okay. So this is basically a levitating magnet, okay? So think of this as the Earth's core, okay? This is the moon, okay? Okay? Now, here's another thing. So you have like I was saying before on the electromagnetic spectrum, okay? So at the beginning of the spectrum, you have, well, I mean, everything is infinite. There's different degrees of infinity. It's just like George Cantor said, the infinity of the infinities, okay? Everything is just different degrees of infinity, okay? But think about it like this, if you want to think about it in practical terms. The beginning of the electromagnetic spectrum, or I like to call it the information spectrum, is infinite. The end of it is infinite, okay? So at the beginning, you have love waves, which oscillate at 10 to 0, also called magnetic waves. And at the end of it, you have entropy waves, also known as gravity waves. So you have magnetic waves basically pushing everything out, and gravity waves basically pulling everything in. So it's this simple, okay? This is gravity waves. But you flip one of them 180, that's magnetic waves. It's that simple. But anyway, that's a toy that I've pretty much built the business to sell. But I just, with taking care of my mom, I can't worry about those things right now. Like even this, with pretty much solving string theory, like I don't really have time to, do interviews and lectures and stuff like that, because I'm not worried about all that stuff. I'm worried about my mom and my dad, So, which is what matters. Love. Because there has to be entropy for love to be able to exist. And I'm trying to keep my parents from this. I want them in this. Okay. So, anyway, but that's pretty much it. That's how it all works. It's all infinite. It's all infinitely expanding, infinitely contracting. Okay? If you guys have any questions, just ask in the comments. Like I said, if you want to go to magnitustoys.com, you can. I have a better commercial and stuff like that already filmed for it and everything like that, but it's just, I'm really afraid to start hitting on that, because if people start buying a lot of them, I'm gonna have to start hiring people and stuff like that just to take care of things, because I really don't have time for that right now, and that's not my priority. My family's my priority. So, all right, but I appreciate your time. Thank you. Be kind to one another. Try to do your best to let go of all that negative energy and just become the infinite conduit of love that you have the capability of being. Okay? Thank you.